guys, welcome to Blonde Vibrations.
Hi everyone.
I'm Lily Emma.
I'm Liz.
And today we are here with Ocean LeClair.
Hi.
Thanks so much for coming in. This is so exciting.
I'm so excited. Before we start, this isn't planned or anything, but tell us about the outfit. Like, why did you walk into the studio today in this outfit?
I sort of kind of dress like this in my free time. Like, my housemate will just see me walk out of my room in like a wedding dress and she won't even like bat an eye. I don't know, I love wearing this. I feel like it's super comfortable actually. Like, I don't know, I love wearing tights and I love wearing little dresses. I kind of circulate between 5 different outfits. I don't really branch out much. But yeah, I just thought it was fitting for the occasion. Pastel colored background.
You do match the background really well.
Yeah, it's really good.
Again, like, I feel like we're about to get on such a tangent already off script, but do you feel like when you're in a specific outfit, it really like dictates your mood? Because I feel like we're really like that. Like, I have to be like fully dressed and almost like in character to be almost like outgoing. Do you feel like that affects you?
I use my outfit sort of to enhance the mood I'm in. So I kind of start with my mood first. So if I'm in like a sort of dark, twisted mood, I'll wear something, I don't know, I'll dress up like a vampire. Or if I'm feeling romantic, like I'll wear a wedding dress with a big fur coat, you know? Like, I like to sort of really, because I love being sad so much. Like, I love relishing in that feeling. So I like to sort of fully sort of commit to the bit. Yeah.
That's so interesting.
I love the like feeling of like, even if like you're not necessarily a creative, like I love feeling like you have like your brand and like what you wear and your brand and like the environment you live in. Like, I think that's so satisfying.
Yeah.
Like, considering like, I guess in a way podcasting isn't like the most creative outlet ever in comparison to, you know, musicians. I feel like we so see that creative world. So I love meeting musicians who think like that, like you do. Like, I think it's so satisfying.
I mean, you're definitely creative. You're creating something right now. You know?
Every time we do these episodes, I always sit here and we're always like, yeah, well, you know, it's this, and everyone's like, no, this is cool.
Yeah.
Feels like the ultimate ego boost having people come in here.
I feel like if it was just like a visual podcast, then maybe less creative, but then we make it into a bit more of a world, like even the background and like the way we design our posts and things like that makes it just a little bit more creative.
Elevated, I suppose.
Yeah, then we can lean into that.
Yeah.
Okay. So the actual questions that you planned now.
Like, about you.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you originally got into songwriting and at what point did this shift into something that maybe you could foresee working towards a career in?
Yeah, so I moved to New York when I was 18 and I studied acting. And maybe like 2 months into it, I was like, this is just not it. Like, I just couldn't sort of, I was really desperate to find somewhere to bed my mind, you know, somewhere to sort of rest all my thoughts and rearrange them. And I felt like acting almost made me more confused. And for no reason at all, I just bought a guitar one night. I think it was like on Halloween, I think. And I just started writing for myself. I'd just be in like a dark bathroom with the reverb and just play guitar and write songs on Post-it notes. And I was doing that for like a year before, I think it was my housemate was having a party and I was playing guitar in my room. I just pulled out my guitar, sort of soft boy style, but by myself, and then people came in and they started listening, and I think people's reaction to what I was saying specifically and my voice just kind of made me think like, okay, well, this is what I've always wanted to do anyway. I just never thought I was good enough, and that was all I needed. I just needed like one person to be like, no, you're actually like really good at this because it's what I love, you know. And then I just moved. I played one gig at Pete's Candy Shop in Brooklyn, which solidified it. I was like, oh my God, this is like, I sort of blacked out when I was playing. I just like left stage and everything was blurry, and I just felt people like patting me on the shoulder, and I was like, oh my God, I found it. I found the thing that I need to be doing. And I moved to Berlin and just did like 100 billion open mics. That's how I started.
Yeah, I love that. So it kind of like feels almost like, sounds so cheesy, but like music almost chose you. Do you kind of feel like fate can play a role in creativity? Would you say so? Or do you think it's still, you have a lot of agency and like if someone wants to be creative, you can be?
I feel like people who knew me earlier in life would disagree with this, but I just think I've trained my voice. Like, I don't think I was born with some people were born with like a sort of soulful, beautiful voice with a natural vibrato. I never had that. I always, like, I spent my whole teens just singing in my bedroom all night long, like trying to improve. So I definitely worked at it. I've always loved music, but I don't know. I think you can do anything you want, really. Like, I think if you want it enough and if you love it enough, you just will never stop working. You'll never stop thinking about it. And then inevitably, after years and years of like hyper fixating on this one thing, like, you're going to be good at it.
Yeah.
You know?
We really feel that.
Yeah.
Like, I think, yes, to a certain extent, you need talent and, yeah, like a vision. But we're quite strong believers in, like, it's the working hard and the truly believing in something.
Yeah, absolutely.
And having something to say.
Yeah.
You know, something that's a bit bigger than what you're doing. Like, having a perspective, because you can learn the craft, but what you bring to it is so different for everyone, and everyone has something else. Maybe, yeah, someone has the voice, someone has the look, someone knows how to move. So we all come at it from like different angles, and that's why everyone's so different and interesting.
I want to see people move away from like creativity as this idea of like, if you've got it, you've got it, and more like you do need to work hard at a craft. Like you could be, like you said, like the most like naturally born singer or painter, but you still do need that practice and that hard work, rather than just kind of like, oh, I'm just going to do it and it will just come to me. Like, not in like an unhealthy way, but just like I like to see people try to do things.
Well, it's like, obviously this is not the same because they were actors before, but like the Daisy Jones like as a show, like they all needed training to sing, but they wanted to do it and be a part in that. So they were like, we will do the lessons. It's not just, some people are born with it. Yeah. That's great. That's just the luck of the draw. But if you want something, you have to go out and get it still.
Yeah. I like the way that when you described the stages of getting into music, you were very like, oh yeah, like in my room, or, you know, in like a dark bathroom when you started playing. Do you think, like, if people haven't listened to your music yet, can you like conjure up a situation in which you would ideally want someone to listen for the first time? Like, whether that's like a location or an environment or a mood, like, what is the ideal situation to be exposed to your music for the first time?
I mean, the answer that I've always had is not PG, so I won't say that. But I think someone tagged me in their story yesterday, and they were sitting in this beautiful, like, castle-looking house. It was just sort of that you could see the fireplace and lots of trinkets on it. And she said she was by a window listening to my music. Like, I think I would hope that I can enhance a situation that's already so beautiful and create a world out of it and like a moment out of it. And I would just love the sort of thought of, you know, someone might be listening to my music when like the best thing ever happens to them. Like, I sang at my childhood best friend's wedding, you know, like my music will always be associated with that. And I don't know, I think that's so beautiful to be someone's soundtrack, you know?
Yeah, and I can absolutely hear that for you. Like, I can picture it, whether that's like real life or like something on the screen.
And less so the setting, but maybe more emotionally, what do you want people to take away from your music?
I want to sort of, I want people to romanticize their life in whatever shapes that takes, because life's not sort of, we think we have this idea of how things are going to go exactly, and it always deviates into something usually more beautiful, right? But hard things happen to us, and I think it's important to embrace those things as well, because that's part of it. Like, how boring would life be if it was just joy and happiness? And I think sort of my grandpa has always said that my music is so sad, but I don't think that sadness is a negative emotion. I think it's something that we need to explore, and I would hope that maybe it helps people confront things that they don't usually sort of let linger.
Yeah.
I think I like what you said there about sad music, because I'm thinking about, you know, when Phoebe Bridgers really started to trend, like it must have been like a few, like 3-4 years ago now. And it was a very similar thing, wasn't it? That people were kind of being like, oh, like, how can you listen to this? Like, this is so depressing. But I think people get a lot of comfort in like organically seeing their emotions portrayed, and also like people not shying away from having emotions.
Yeah, people relate to it. Like everyone does feel sad, so there's no point pretending it doesn't exist, and only making happy, cheerful music. There's definitely a place for that as well, but exploring very real feelings is important.
Yeah, I personally feel like I'm quite an emotional person. I think over like the past like 6 months, like going forward, I'm trying to like, you know, like feel the emotions and like feel really secure in that, and like this is what I'm feeling exactly. Yeah. Letting myself feel that, and then okay, how do I want to move on, or how do I want to put that emotion into something? Yeah. And it feels like that's what you do with your music almost, is that you feel the emotion and then you put it into something.
Yeah, and in any sense, like it's not just sadness. Sometimes it's also just not feeling anything. Yeah. Like the concept of writing a song where the lyrics are not deeply personal and super meaningful was like so insane to me a year ago. I was like, why would you not write about your own life? Like I always thought of it as almost like phony, but I'm in a period of my life where I'm in love with words and sounds and how they are combined, and I'm writing music that's telling other stories and that maybe is happy, or maybe not everything has to be deep. Like I just think it's important to not restrict yourself as an artist and just let the audience like I would hope that everyone's open to whatever I'm creating and lets that sort of in.
Yeah, because some artists get a lot of hate when they try and go in a different direction, or the whole Billie Eilish, or you're not sad anymore. Why are you singing about things that aren't just being, you know, really, really down? It's like, because people go through different things. And again, she started to write about other experiences that weren't her own. It's because she's free to do that. And you are, all the artists are free to just write about what they want to, because it's all subjective at the end of the day.
My favorite example is Ethel Cain's new album, which I love. And so many people were like, oh my God, what is this and stuff? And I was like, welcome to my world. Like, you know, there's some disturbing things happening, and it's just interesting. Music is art at the end of the day. It's not just meant for consumption and easy consumption. It's something that used to be political, and it used to break barriers and like start revolutions, you know, like not everything has to be palatable.
And that's the fear, I think, with, I guess, fandom in a sense, and that kind of feeling like because you follow an artist and because you spend both like time, money, energy on a person, I think there is that idea of, you know, I want you to do what I signed up for. And I think that's what happened with both Ethel and Billie, is that it's kind of like, well, this isn't who I first started listening to, but it's also like, well, that's how things go. And it's also like, that doesn't mean, like, we then live in some really weird dystopian world in which every artist is supposed to do what they're expected to do, and that's so boring.
If we can't have change with artists, then you wouldn't have had like Taylor's eras. Like, and that's so important. That shows so many stages of like what she's gone through. We wouldn't have had that if she just had to always stay, you know, a country singer, or then always be in a certain type of pop. She couldn't go more indie with other albums. Like, where's the fun in it?
Yeah, I do feel like it sort of like the people who truly are fans, who love the artist, they will listen to whatever they create. And if it's not something they like, they wouldn't sort of rebel against it. I think a lot of people who have an issue with the direction artists are going in maybe have just found them. And they're like, oh, I just found your music and I love your old stuff and I'm only starting to get used to that. Like, I'm not ready to move on yet, you know? But, you know, they could just listen to something else.
I don't want to bring up the whole Lana of it all too early, but I kind of feel that with Lana a bit. Like, there's certain Lana albums that I don't listen to that much, but I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, remember when she did that? Like, it's kind of like, that's, you can press play on whatever you want to press play on. Like, you don't have to press play on that, and that's fine.
Definitely.
I feel like that about Blue Bannisters. Like, it was so underappreciated, and it's probably my second favorite album. And only now that it's sort of on TikTok, people are like discovering it. I'm like, guys, it was there all along. It's the best thing
But it's
ever.
because people don't adjust to it. And that's what it is. It is that, like, people expect it to be easy to just switch and be like, this is the new music that I'm going to listen to. And it's not, like, that's not how it works. And that's not, like, your life isn't always going to be lined up with that artist's life. So, like, you either need to, like, adjust or just let it be. Before we started recording, we were kind of talking about cultiness and, you know, your like of that. And last week you had a cult meeting.
Yes.
Which is just like, it feels so true to your brand. Like, I love that. If you host any more in the future, like, can you explain to listeners like what they can expect from the itinerary of these events?
Yeah.
Would you host more of them?
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of a very natural thing that happened. I was just like, I want to do a meetup. The fandom's called The Cult. It's kind of a bit tongue-in-cheek, but also, you know, I love a 60s cult. Like, I'm quite fascinated with all of it. And I go live on TikTok a lot, and we call them cult meetings. So I was like, let's do one in real life.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I didn't expect that many people to show up. And sort of, I don't know, like, it was just so perfect. Like, I knew it was going to be great, but everyone was dressed like a cult member. The room that I'd booked was like so beautiful, and everything just sort of fell into place. I think it started with us listening to the EP, and the first track, Montreal, which anyway is quite like sort of whimsical and soft. We all sat in a circle holding hands with a candle in the middle, with our eyes closed, like swaying to the song. And it wasn't weird. It was like so wholesome and beautiful. And, you know, girls were sharing what the songs meant to them. One girl said that she grew up thinking her dad was Leonard Cohen, you know, and it was like, there's so many like amazing stories that I now have associated with my music, because we all got to listen to it together. I played a few songs, the way that I usually write, which is amp and mic, and guitar. And yeah, we took lots of photos. I had eclairs, because the fans are called the eclairs. So I got eclairs and cherry juice. Yeah, it was lovely. I would say I would love to create events that are a bit longer. It was like 2 hours and then we extended by 1 hour, but it just flew by. I would love to maybe get the chance to speak with people a bit more, and maybe even create, like, I think third spaces are so important, and creating spaces where women can connect over their interests and vulnerabilities, and maybe even find like a space to talk about things, and potentially, like, there's so much craziness happening in the world right now, and I think people really crave community. I think that's why fandoms are so popular right now, because people are craving friendship and love and support. I completely think it's like a positive thing. I know there's sort of talk around it being parasocial and stuff. I just think it beats like just commenting on each other's photos online, or like whatever we do, swipe through each other's stories. Like, we're actually connecting over something. And it's not just my music. Like, we talk about Patti Smith, Stevie Nicks, Sharon Tate, Leonard Cohen, like all these incredible artists and their legacy. And I think, yeah, I would just love to try to create a place where maybe we can envision like a more beautiful future, you know?
It's so important to have that conversation, that connection between women, I think. And it almost goes back to, you know, the criticism of like gossip being like, that's so bad, and, you know, why do girls like talk about everything and make a big deal out of everything? And it's like, because that's how you form connections, and that's just like, that's part of life. And I think it's so important to feel comfortable with in yourself when you have other people to kind of situate yourself. I think like female friendships are so important, and it was very clear, like from what we saw from the cult meeting online as well. It was just, it had such like a positive aura around it.
Yeah,
and it's insane,
magical,
because everyone so looked the part, and I think it was so special to see that connection. Really, it was very clearly so strong that you could see it from like photos and videos.
I have chills. That's so beautiful. I think I met a lot of these girls before, and I've been speaking to some of them for a year, and I just met them for the first time. Like, I know their favorite song, and I know sort of what they're studying or what they want in life, and their sort of problems and dreams, and it's like a really, really, really positive thing. And I hope we all move to that a bit more, rather than like sit in our rooms cooped up, and like everyone wants love and friendship, you know? Like, I just think, I love that I was able to create something that is so positive, and I can show people what's possible, you know?
Yeah, and we did our ins and outs for 2025, and we were talking about third spaces.
Yeah.
Especially, I think it's been a while now, but after like the pandemic and everything,
Yeah.
we were all on our screens so much. Like, it's nice to have those spaces that we all can just come together. You could be talking about the same things, but there's more of a sense of togetherness when you're not just texting, or even the difference between, FaceTime and just being in meeting. That's why we wanted to, like, just get coffees with people more often, or just message someone and be like, hey, like, we don't know each other, but shall we hang out, and things like that. And I think this cult meeting and your fans together, like, it's that same sort of thing.
Yeah.
Do you think it is quite vital in having a connection with your audience for building almost like a secure space in the music industry and as a career?
I think I see a lot of talk about creating community and like branding, and this is what you got to do to make it and to get signed and stuff. And it kind of just, like, I never approached it from that angle. I was just like, who are these people listening to my music? What are their stories and why do they love it? And like, I think I've gotten so much from them as much as they have from my music. It's not about just creating community. It's sort of just like a natural thing that happens when you have the option to see these people. Like, TikTok is so great because it allows people to, when someone lip syncs to my song, I'm like, oh my God, that's, that's her. Like, she's been listening to my song all this entire year. And I'm only seeing her face for the first time. Like, how often does that that used to only happen at live shows,
Yeah.
And even then, like, you maybe take a photo with someone and that's it. Like, it's just such a gift to be able to have a back and forth with fans, and it's such an important part to me. So I'm sure it's important. I think you can make a career without it, but I just would never want to miss it.
It's about making not just community, but a genuine one. And I think if they're listening to your music, they probably have like quite a lot in common with you. So why would you not want to seek them out?
Of course, yeah.
I think we talk a lot about genuine connection, and I think there's this real danger, I think, because of fandoms have always been a thing, forever, as long as there's been. Yeah, and also like celebrity culture, like, is forever, and I think the past, maybe it is coming out of the pandemic, there was almost this weird like smear campaign on fandoms, and I'd say maybe like the couple years where it's kind of like, that is so unhealthy, and I think it's not the fandoms that are unhealthy, it's people doing it for the wrong reasons, and people trying to create community because they think that will do well and that will make them successful, versus like creating a community because that's what you crave as a person and you want to see people connect over your music. Whereas I think the actual real problem is when you see people be like doing it just to get followers. And
also, it sort of happened, I agree, I've seen it in the last couple of years that people are talking about it, and it's only when sort of like female artists on TikTok have gained a following. Like, I've not heard that much about the Beatles and Beatlemania and girls literally fainting, and with Elvis it was all like, oh yeah, they're just groupies and stuff. The moment like a woman steps into the light and creates something that a man can't, suddenly it's such an issue and so poisonous and horrible. Like, I don't know, I just think we need to redefine also what toxic is. Like, why is it toxic? If it's bringing joy to all parties and it's not hurting anyone, what's the problem,
We were actually just talking the last Tuning In episode about how it feels like the music industry, conveniently timed for us in this series, does feel like it's becoming more feminine, both in the sense of the rise of so many amazing female musicians, but also in the sense of it feels like people are favouring the almost like feminine lens of things. You're seeing people conjure up worlds more, and you're seeing people be more creative and not just making music. And I think that's where a lot of this hate comes from, is that you're right, it feels like it's something that a lot of men can't reproduce and they can't quite grasp, because it is that third space away from masculinity that they can't get into.
Yeah, and also it's not something like a bunch of execs at a record label can do. Sitting in a room being like, guys, how do we create a community? Like, for like women are creators, like women can create these like beautiful worlds. We always have like what we do in the household and the family is like historically, you know, to everything we do. Like I just think, yeah, it's in our nature. It's not something we have to force.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
And so it's a move away from the whole like short form, like algorithmic. I feel like you're seeing people want like longer form, more connections, like more depth, and not just that like snappy, like superficial stuff, which I love. Like that's what I consume and that's what I make, so I'm very happy to see it. Yeah, so then like I guess looking forward to hopefully more female connections maybe, is that you actually have a show coming up on the 19th of March. And I'm gonna read this so I make sure I get it right. And we were actually talking about like weirdly stalkering, like capturing things, but you did say me and a secret special guest are putting on a night of folklore and whimsy.
Yes.
Can we get any teasers on this and like what people can expect from seeing this carefully crafted world in person?
Well, the reason I wanted to do the gig at Troubadour was because Bob Dylan and Joni Mitchell have played there in the 60s and 70s. And if you've heard my EP, the first song, I start with I Weigh Paddy and Joni and Bob and Baez, sort of paying homage to the greats and the people that have influenced me. And I just thought it would be so perfect to do a show there, to sort of, in the spirit of honoring them. It's a relatively small venue, so I'm hoping it'll be packed. I'm still confirming this special guest, but I want it to be, I'm going to play my EP, but I want there also to be this the spirit of folk music. I want it to be in the room with us, you know, and I'm going to be playing more songs on guitar than I usually would, and it'll be extremely cozy.
I love how candidly you speak about your predecessors and also like other creatives around you. I think it's really refreshing to see someone like really own that, because I think, God, we keep being like, oh, there's such hate for this, but I think there's almost like a bit of taboo around kind of saying who you're influenced by, because it's like you run the risk of being like, well, you're trying to be them. And I think it's so refreshing the way you speak about, like Bob Dylan and Joni Mitchell. Like I think it's so nice because you can see it, and it just shows how like carefully you weave the threads of your creative identity. Like, so I think this show's gonna be really special.
I appreciate. I mean, there was a Leonard Cohen cover on the EP, and I was so terrified to do it because I was like, I don't know, can I pull this off? And then when I was singing it, I was like, oh my God, Leonard Cohen would be proud of me, like, because I mean every word I say, and I understand him, you know. So I just think, like these people are just like woven through everything and have influenced me. So why would I not own up to it? I mean, nothing's new under the sun.
And that's what folklore kind of gets its joy out of, isn't it? It is just kind of like, for like lack of a more like elegant way to say it, but like regurgitation of the same stories, and everything is connected, and everyone's influenced, and everyone's bouncing off each other. And I think that's something that did used to happen in more like 60s, 70s music that I would like to see more of now, and have people like openly be like, this is directly maybe reflective. I love that.
Can you tell us how it feels to be recognised by other artists on the scene, and them having the faith in exposing you to their audiences, you know, opening for Suki Waterhouse, Catty and people like that?
I mean, it's so essential. The amount of artists who've had their start, if not all of them, I mean, it's the old school way of finding an artist, is by having them open for someone that you love. And I've found people through it, and obviously been found. I'm so appreciative of Catty. Like, Lafayette was my favorite show that I've done, and her fans are so incredible, and it was just such a great opportunity, and she is so amazing. Suki Waterhouse, obviously I grew up idolizing her, so that was just a dream come true, and it was so great of her to like, because at that point I had 2 songs out, you know, like that was such a great opportunity for me, and just truly shows like the camaraderie that artists do have between each other. Like, I've never felt any sort of weird competitive like vicious energy, like what people always say about women being like, so sort of, I don't know, I've never felt that. I've always felt love and support from female artists, and obviously it feels so great.
Because there's been so much like discourse, I suppose, on specifically TikTok at the minute about opening acts. I don't know if you've seen about the Dora Jar, Gracie Abrams situation. And I just think it's ridiculous. Like the fact that you're able to, you know, be exposed to like wider audiences and things like that. Like, why would anyone want to take that opportunity away from people?
It's like it don't, you know, it's such a gift. I was talking about this. I don't know. I would be so heartbroken if someone at any of these gigs had been like, actually, we don't know her, so sorry. Like, we don't accept. It's this sort of sense of entitlement. Like, I think the artist knows best what their audience would like. I think it's sort of the trust in the artist that you need to have, knowing that they chose them for a reason and that they deserve to be there.
Definitely. And we were just talking a little bit before about how the way you present yourself and your songwriting, it feels very conscious of these predecessors. More specifically, can you tell us a bit about what you draw from iconic female artists like Stevie Nicks, Lana Del Rey, and how that helps you shape your creative identity as a whole?
I think maybe the permission to, like, I think sort of take up room. Like, we do have a lot of examples of like rock stars, like especially male rock stars in the 60s and 70s, and there's, I guess, for like every 100 bands there's like a handful of female artists in between. Like, we've really had to sort of fight for our place, and the excellence of the women who did manage to sort of punch their way through is like, it's insane, you know? Like, I think Stevie Nicks is, to me, just like something almost divine, like a deity. I feel like that a lot about rock and roll. I think that's why people used to say it was like the devil, because we do like idolize these people and turn them into greater figures. Like, the way I think about Aphrodite, I think about Stevie Nicks. Like, I think we can learn a lot specifically from older women. I'm sort of really making an effort to sort of create my own matriarchy. Like, I'm reaching out to older women and asking for advice, and I just generally feel really drawn to like sort of the whole youth obsession in our culture is so interesting and clearly so built on the patriarchy, because when it really comes down to it, there's no one wiser than an older woman who's lived and loved and felt pain and maybe birthed a child. Like, so there's a different type of energy that runs through like Joni Mitchell's music, you know? It's not obviously like better or worse, it's just different. So I'm glad I'm able to live in an age as well where I can look to the past for female influences. I'm sure there was a time where that wasn't the case. I think I just use my favorite artists as sort of spirit guides.
Stevie Nicks is so magical as well. Like, you can feel it in her songwriting, and I think it is a lot I think there's a lot in courage in that style of songwriting, and I think that's what makes it then feel so powerful listening to it as a woman. I think you hear it and you can feel that she truly is placing everything on the track.
I think the sort of actually main thing I just thought of is like, we don't really see, like, women are so contained, like, we're taught to be quiet and polite and kind and whatever, whereas men have a lot more room to be sort of loud and expressive. And I think looking at a woman on stage who's put herself there, be loud and sort of unladylike and scream and feel and just let all of that sort of primal like anger and pain out, like, that is something so special, because we're not allowed to complain that much, you know, like it's not it's so it's quite a unique and special thing.
I kind of feel that with Miley Cyrus as well. Like, I know some people don't like her music, but I think she goes out on stage and she's almost reminiscent of past artists as well, because she really puts herself out there and she just does what she wants, and she's got a lot of hate for that, but I think again, that's the courage in doing something that other people just wouldn't really.
I think people just hate to see women like indulge.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
I think, and it feels like a common thread I feel throughout this series is that I feel like you are taught to not be like, this is actually really cool, or this is
Yeah.
really good, and you know, look at me actually, like I'm going to stand here and I'm
Yeah.
going to do my craft and I'm going to show you how I feel. And I feel like that for a lot of people that feels like a really bizarre thing to do, and
Yeah.
it feels almost vain.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the artists that do that and then so admirable.
Yeah, it's so crazy. Men are just allowed to do it.
Yeah.
They're allowed to just be these gods, and you know, like no one has a problem with it. Like Elvis,
Mm-hmm.
but
You didn't have to like justify it in the same
Yeah,
way
you
that someone
just-
else would.
yeah, I think it's harder definitely to release that programming as a woman. But I feel so grateful that I was sort of raised by a really loud, bold mother, because I just have never felt like I needed to be small, and I've always been too confident, and that's fine.
That's a really good problem to
Yeah,
have.
I think so. I'm grateful for it.
Yeah. And while we're talking about really vulnerable songwriting, which I feel like you do, I'm interested in how your collaboration process works with that. Like, obviously you've collaborated with artists like Honey Gentry. How do you feel like your really personal, journalistic styled songwriting lends itself to creative collaboration? Like, do you feel like that's an easy switch up to then start writing with other people, or do you feel like you have to really know them to feel comfortable in doing that?
I think it's different. I mean, I've also written with different people in the past, or even just working with a producer. Like, you have to be really honest and vulnerable. It's something you just learn how to. I mean, I have no privacy. I like rip pages out of my journal and sell them as merch. Like,
I loved seeing that.
don't
We were there, we were
care.
like, wow, that's so cool.
I literally have. I do not care. Like, I'm sort of an open book. But I think it depends on the collaborator, right? Like, the song I did with Honey was Sirens of Saint-Tropez. Like, it had a sort of very different theme to, let's say, Blue Cotton, which is like deeply personal. I would just, adapt like what I'm singing about, and it's not even like a conscious thing. You're in a room with someone, and that's what comes up. Like, you maybe we talk about like women in the spotlight and taking up space. Like, if we were in a session right now, that's probably what we write about, you know.
And do you see yourself collaborating more in the future? And whilst we're in this space with the ghost lights and everything, maybe it's time to manifest some people that you might want to collaborate with?
Oh, yes. I would love to either open or make a song with The Last Dinner Party. I love them. I think they're sort of the band of our generation. Like, it's the kind of, like, I love Led Zeppelin and, like Jimi Hendrix and stuff. And I just see so much of like David Bowie. I see so much of that in them, like the way they take up space, and I don't know, I love them. Also, obviously would love to do a song with Suki. We work with the same producer, so our style, like, sometimes people see similarities. I really love her voice and her as a person. I don't know who else. I mean, there's a lot of people, but I'm sort of also thinking in the frame of possibility, or what makes sense. Like, yeah, I'd do a song with Patti Smith, but like no one would think that made no one would be like, oh yeah, I saw that coming. I don't know. I mean, there's a million people I would love to work with, but off the top of my head.
Do you have to be in like a specific like physical or emotional space to write songs? Like, I know you've kind of touched on it, but do you kind of feel like you have to set yourself apart, or is it more like something happens and you're like, I need to write about this now, or I need to produce this now?
There's both. So I can write at any time, always. Like, I've never had a writer's block. I've never felt like, oh, I don't really, because I think there's always something going on, whether that's going to be like a deeply personal song that's going to make people cry, or whether that's just a bop people are going to like bounce to, like, there's always something to write about. So I do have songs that I've written because I've had to, and even songs that I've written without the intention of publishing them. But there are also songs that I just wrote because it's fun. More often than not, I mean, everything from the EP has been necessity to write. And then if it turns into a sort of an upbeat beat, like bop, like Eau de Toi is like such a fun song, but it started off as a guitar like ballad that I wrote because I was like super obsessed with someone. I was like, why can't I get them out of my head? Like, it's so annoying. And then that turned into something really uplifting and fun, which is I also love, you know. So I can always write. Not to brag.
Again, a good problem to
Yeah,
have.
that also doesn't surprise me either, like hearing that.
my gosh.
I'm like, yeah, of
Makes
course you
sense.
would find it hard to write.
And then thinking more about the visuals, you clearly have a very clear brand and creative landscape. Does the songwriting shape the visuals, or do you have to see the world to write yourself in it and your place there?
I think it's sort of in an ecosystem where everything influences, you know, it's sort of a circle and fluid process of osmosis. But I think that I often have a visual in my head, whether that's even just, I don't have synesthesia per se, but when I'm in the studio and I try to describe things to my producer with not using the lingo, I'm just like, you know, I just want this to feel like, you know, when it's autumn but it's getting dark, so the sky's kind of blue and it's crisp outside and there's sort of like lampshades that have just turned on. Like, I want the reverb to sound like that, and they'll usually be like, okay, sure. But I view things like that. I see songs as seasons and as books, and I see the stories in my head. And I've started recently, I've been a lot more like, oh, I want to write a song that feels like, you know, like a David Lynch film or something. And then that's super interesting to think, okay, what color is that? What sound is that? What would that smell like? You know, like, I'm quite sensual about things. So everything's sort of, it's a very sensual experience for me to write.
I get such satisfaction of hearing people think like that, because that is how we think.
Really?
Like, I feel like the moment we have any idea, we can visualize it. I think like our new post style on Instagram, for example, we were like so excited to trial out like new forms of presenting like our writing or our thoughts in really visual ways, because that's how we think as well. And I think it probably is why we do gravitate towards you, because it's like, I see that in you and I'm like, I really appreciate it, and I don't know, I just get such satisfaction.
I
out
take
of
it
hearing
even to extremes. Like, I can't think of examples right now,
Yeah.
but if I have one thought in my head, I
Yeah.
can basically build like
Yeah.
every other thing around
Oh my
it
God, it's
before
so
we've
fun.
even. It's even like doing the thumbnails before we've even written the episode. 'Cause it's like, no, but I can just like sense the sort of things that we're gonna want here
Yeah.
before we then sit down and write
Yeah.
it.
I wrote a song recently based on a sentence that I said, like the title of the song basically, and it was like such a fun experience. It was like, after like the election, and I said, beam me into space, because I was like, I can't do this anymore. So that's like a major leak, but but yeah, it's quite interesting. There's a lot of ways to, I think, like for visual art, it's so natural to experiment, to be like, oh, I'm going to use this toothbrush as my brush or whatever. Like, but when it comes to music, like we have the same permission, you know. You can paint with charcoal, you can do this, you can do that. Like, you can start with a title, you can start with a sentence, you can start with a chorus, you can start with a color, you can start with a place. You write different in your bathtub, you write different in your bed, like you write different when you're on the train. Yeah.
So, and this is probably really putting you on the spot, but what do you see when you think of this new EP then? Like, what is the overall vision? Like, what is if it was a painting, what do you think would be featured?
It would sort of go through stages, I think, but I see sort of a lot of medieval iconography, like red wine and grapes, and like a rustic table, like sort of a pilgrimage up Mount Royal by yourself, and like an autumn night, like looking at the stars, and just sort of this dark, mystical soundscape creaking wooden floors.
I love that. I can see like really like rich dark colours. Like I really.
Oh, it's almost making me like drift like away into it.
I love that. Conjured it up.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go on to the agony aunt section of the episode. So these were all submitted by your fans.
I'm so excited.
They were anonymous, and we can show you the rest of them after if you want to see them. Because you actually had quite a lot, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
The cult.
So number 1 is, my dream is to work in film as a director, but it's so difficult to get to that point, and I may never be able to do it. So is it better to go to university and study to do a boring job that I'll hate? That way I can have more security. Or try as hard as I can to work on a film set where I may never have enough money or security. But if I do achieve it, I'll be much happier. And they say they love you.
I love them too. And I mean, they know what I'm going to say. But I don't believe, I don't want to say I don't believe in going to school. I do, but I think I've been doing this for so long now without like really reaping the benefits, like up until this point. There's if you do something that you love, like you're going to work really, really hard. And you're going to have to fight for it. And it's going to be long, and you're going to want to quit. And there's going to be moments where you truly feel hopeless. There's going to be moments where you're super excited, you think you've made it, and then the next day you realize there's more to go. Like, it's a journey, but it's your purpose. The reason that you feel like you want to be in film is because you were born with this sense of purpose, which means that you are destined to do it, which means that you're probably going to do it. And it's sort of your role in this life to pursue that and figure yourself out in the process. Like, I do believe the person we become through seeking out our dreams is who we're always meant to be, and sort of the dream is just the path to get there. And having a boring job you don't care about is a cop-out. You're never going to develop. You're never going to grow into who you're supposed to be. Whether or not you end up working in your dream movies, like, you're still going to end up being someone worth being, someone who's fought and someone who's dreamt and someone who's hoped. And I just would rather, like, achieving the goal is almost the most boring part because you've achieved it, and now what? You know, like, it's the dreaming about it that's beautiful. It's the anticipation, it's the excitement, it's the journey. Like, The Alchemist, good book, Paulo Coelho, but it's, you know, the road is the goal, and anything's possible. Like,
it's also, uni will always be there. You can always go there. The student loan in this country, at the very least, it's like there whenever you choose to like take it. But you having the energy and the time to pursue that passion might not be there for whatever reason beyond your control later on. You could even, if you are so scared of just fully committing, can you maybe go to uni and study something to do with film? Like, that's a nice in-between that...
Because you're still going towards that goal.
Yeah, and then you might be qualified in a way, or get some experience. And if you get the experience through your course, you might decide it's not for you, which is also fine. Or you might be like, wait, no, I've taken this time to explore it, and I really want to do it after. Just take gap year, gap 5 years. Like, you don't have to do anything. Like, it's your own like timeline. I think just do it to your ability and what makes you happy.
Yeah. I think we're quite strong believers, and we say it on the podcast a lot about, like, if you truly want to do something and you're truly passionate about it, people will want to see it. And I feel like that's the like energy that I got, especially from your part, is that, like, I feel like if you're so passionate about film, it will come through, and it will be hard, but I do believe, like, that eventually you'll get the benefits of that, because that's what people ultimately want to see, especially in creative fields.
Yeah, you're probably not going to walk in and suddenly direct like the #1 feature film of the year. You might do, though. You never know. But it's going to take some steps and hard work, and there might be some points where you're like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. But if you stop then, the big opportunity might have been next week, and if you walk away from it, then you'll never have it, and that's what you have to live with.
Also, the feeling of, you know, you're assisting at some student film, you spend all day on your feet, 15-hour, 16-hour day, you come home and you lie in your bed and you look at the ceiling and you're like, oh my God, like I'm doing what I want to be doing. Whereas like doing your boring job every day, you're going to come home and you're going to be like, I don't know what to do. Like, this is so boring. I hate my life.
And it's like everything's stressful. Like this is like, for example, like even like doing these little like recording days for us, like it's so stressful and there's so many logistics and you need to plan this and that. And even like while you're doing it sometimes, you're kind of like, you get so swept up and you're like, oh, you're not necessarily living in the moment and like feeling the benefits straight away. But it is like you said, you go home or you like go to work the next day or you do something else and you're like, no, like I did that. And no matter how big or small it is, you get that satisfaction of like, I'm doing what I wanted to do. And this is something that even if it's a small step, that was a big step for me once upon a time. Like even if you're like just like an extra, it's like you once dreamed of being an extra, and it's taking those moments to stop and look back and be like, that's still a good step.
Yeah, and it's true, like the stress is always going to be there, but it's better to be stressed about your passion than stressed about something you dislike. Because if you can't remove the hard work that you clearly want to do in some way, you may as well do something that you look back and think like, yeah, I am doing that, and really makes me happy, because time isn't promised, so you may as well use up what you have in a good way.
Also, neither is money. Like, you can go to school for something, get a really great job, and still not make a lot of money. Like, this economy is kind of fucked up. So, yeah, it doesn't really... Following your dreams versus having this stable job, it's not as stable as you think.
No.
Yeah. Well,
Good luck.
I did law, and I'm not a lawyer, so really sometimes the degree doesn't get you where you want to be. But
this person's parents are officially gonna like block me on Instagram. Like,
it's okay.
Don't go to school, kids.
Number 2 is, how do you deal with being unmotivated and just not having the will to do anything?
I'm not gonna like this. I just never have that. I think because of what we just said, like I'm deeply motivated by my dreams, and it's something I love doing, and I know everything that's part of it. And I actually have a quote that I coined. It's just I don't know, maybe I've heard it from somewhere, but I've been saying it my whole life, and it's something that's gotten me through pretty much anything sort of procrastination wise. It's let me get this right. Just because you want to do something doesn't mean you have to, and just because you don't want to do something doesn't mean you can't. And I swear I came up with this because I just like I don't, it sounds so simple, but in my head it just blew my mind, because just because you want to do something doesn't mean you have to. I want to watch like 10 hours of Netflix and like eat ice cream, but I don't have to. No one's forcing me to do it. I can easily just be like, okay, I know this is probably not the best course of action. Let me just use my free will and not do something a bit more beneficial. Just because I don't want to do something doesn't mean I can't is insane, because when I'm at home all day, like I always need to get out of the house, otherwise I go insane. So I just force myself. I'm just like, you're going to go on a walk now. You're going to go do this. Like, I know you feel cozy and you don't, it's cold and you don't want to do it, but you actually can by just like standing up and walking to the door and just doing it. Like, you're not, so it's like quite a tough love approach, but just do it. Yeah. Like, you're fine.
And to a certain extent, it goes back to that last dilemma as well, I suppose. It's like you need to set the tangible goals to motivate yourself and take each step towards it.
Yeah, and also I think a big one as well is like, know the consequence of your actions. Like, maybe right now you like, I don't know, want to drink a whole bottle of vodka, but you just know you're going to feel horrible. So just think about that, and think about how good you're going to feel going outside, how good you're going to feel finishing your homework, how like all of these things, like it's so motivating to feel good and to not have anything on your plate and to know you've done all of your things and you're on track. Like it's a wonderful feeling worth chasing.
I love that. Yeah. So this last one, there is barely any context to it.
Oh God.
And I can only assume that they're asking, what would you do or what would they do? I don't know.
Okay.
But it was just, I'm in a situationship with a toxic guitarist, but he can cook and twirl me in the air. So,
Oh,
look, I guess
shit.
read from that what you will. Should they be together? Maybe.
Yeah, maybe this is like a tangible.
Like, I'm hearing the word toxic loud and clear there, but does the other things outweigh it?
I just think, I think every man is toxic, just some people are a bit more open about it. At least you know what you're working with.
Yeah.
At least you know what to expect. Is he gonna like majorly fuck up your life? Probably. Will you get good songs out of it? Will you write some poems? Will you have some crazy stories to remember? I think as long as you don't take it too seriously and think that he's gonna be something he's not, like he's probably never gonna commit to, he's probably gonna just drain you and you're gonna be his mommy. Like, you're just not, you know, guitarist. Bad news as a guitarist.
Are you the boyfriend in question?
I'm the boyfriend in question. I've been there so many times and I do it again, you know, like it's whatever. Like, I think it is what it is. Like, we're not perfect people. We don't fall for perfect people. And as long as you're aware that he's scum.
If he's presenting himself in that way to you, take it for not what you think he can be, but what he is. And then you can decide what to do with that.
And remain some power, I feel. Like, you don't want to be, like, powerless in that, like, completely powerless in that situation.
Yeah.
Because that's when it stops being fun.
And good luck.
Yes.
And enjoy being
I want, like,
cooked for.
updates from all of those. Like, I want, like...
In 6 months' time. Are you still together or what?
I want to be invited for dinner.
Yes.
Sounds like he's a good cook.
True.
And he's
Wow. Funny you should mention dinner, because I actually have a question somewhat to do with, like, dinner
Interesting.
tables.
Okay.
It seems really basic, but it is because we were thinking about this whole, like, world and images, is that we could really picture, like, this white, lacy, like, table set up with, like, witchy vibes and ghosts. So we just really wanted to ask you, like, if you could have a few dinner guests. I didn't want to put a number on it, dead or alive. Like, who would you pick? Like, what is that dream? I mean, obviously, the people who submitted academic questions would be three.
Oh, they'll be lucky, because I would have Leonard Cohen, Jeff Buckley, but I would invite him to, like, come after everyone's laugh.
After, just private after.
Oh yeah, the dinner is at midnight. Where's everyone? They've left. You're late. Yeah. So Leonard Cohen, Jeff Buckley later. Oh my God, it's always like you think of this like constantly, and then when you have to say it.
And you have to think about how they're going to interact as well, I suppose. Like, who's going to get along or not get along.
They're all going to interact just fine. I think Andy Warhol.
That's an interesting one.
I think he's super, like, camp and amazing. I think, like, he's just, the stuff he comes out with. Patti Smith, for sure. Probably, like, everyone I mentioned in Montreal. But then maybe... like Marie Curie, or just like, I don't know, like a naturalist, maybe Darwin. Like, I just want to sort of, I want to merge them and just see what happens. Like, yeah, I think I'm going to go home and really ruminate on this question.
Again, if you want to give us any, like, updates, we can get Becky to put it on the screen.
Yeah,
if you have anyone, like, if you're, like, laying in
Incredible.
bed and you're like, oh my God, I need to invite this person.
No, because
Editor Becky's got your back.
if I was asked this question and I didn't know at the time, I'd go home and I'd be like, oh, there's my answers.
I know. Oh, it's going to come. Stay tuned.
So I'm hoping that, again, this isn't putting you on the spot too much. Maybe this one's a little bit easier to kind of like just go with your gut.
Yeah.
What do you feel are your Sun, Moon and Rising as Lana albums?
Oh my
why?
God. I love that. My sun. Okay, so sun is like who you actually are, right?
Yeah.
I would say Norman fucking Rockwell, NFR. My moon. Well, okay. I think rising, well, it's what you present as, like what people think of you. People often say I'm like calming and whimsical, which I find really confusing because in my head it's like just, you know. So I think I'm probably Blue Bannisters in terms of rising sign. My moon sign. I mean, maybe, I think it might be There's a Tunnel Under Ocean Boulevard, because it's really lyric heavy and convoluted, and there's so much going on, a lot of family things and legacy things. I think that would probably be my moon.
I think like those are good choices for you. Like I feel that if you put us in a room long enough, I feel we also would have come to the same conclusions.
That's the
for
problem
you.
with me and these questions. Like I take them so seriously.
Yeah,
I'm like,
no, we're the
this is
same.
gonna go down in history.
We were trying to answer it for ourselves last night. It stresses me out so much that I can't.
Yeah, I feel like we're kind of evil. I feel like we ask questions that actually we
Can't
we
answer.
wouldn't be able to answer ourselves.
I need like a week to think about that one. But
Yeah.
I'll get
I'll
back
be
to you guys
thinking
on
about
it.
this.
So we've been talking about your EP kind of throughout, and like congrats. I mean, I guess we didn't formally say it, but yes, very exciting. How do you feel like that it differs from your past work? Is there anything that like you wanted to carry on from that? Is there anything that you learned from this that you want to take forward, like growth-wise? Where do you situate it?
I think it's a lot more similar to my first EP rather than my second. My second was kind of the odd one out. It's very folky and stripped back and sort of a lot of things I needed to get off my chest. I think sonically, this is a lot more where I sit. Like I think I view this as sort of kind of arriving to the conclusion of who I am as an artist right now. But Montreal was the most recent track from that EP, which I think is a good representation of, especially like lyrically, how I've developed. I know exactly where I'm gonna go. I've got like this huge vision of it. So if anything, I'm kind of fruit on a grave in every sense. Like I could probably give you 1,000 reasons why this album is called Fruit on a Grave. You know, it's just sort of, it works in every sense of the metaphor. It's kind of, what I'm left with at the end of these 3 EPs, moving on to something else, moving on to who I actually have been or who I grew into through the process of it. So I see it as the closing of a chapter, whilst also seeing it as the foundation for what's to come, which I'm so excited about.
I think I want to live a day in your brain. Like, I'm so interested in what's going on in there.
Like, this could go on for hours of us just like unpicking each part of you. I love it.
You do not. You absolutely don't.
So finally, we ask all of our guests for 1 or 2 female musicians that you think we should be tuning into, the audience should. So who are you nominating to tune in?
Definitely Honey Gentry. She's like such a sweetheart, honestly, one of the most wholesome, lovely people I've ever met. She's so talented. She produces her own stuff, mainly, like, has the voice of an angel, and she's such a good songwriter. Like, when we started working on Sirens of Saint-Tropez, she kind of, like, I sent her the demo with my verse on it, and she sent me back the verse, like, within a few hours, and it was incredible. So she just gets it. So I love Honey, and I think my audience loves her already, but, and then also, in terms of who I think people should be listening to, my best friend has a project. It's called Finley, and she's like the songwriter of our generation. I swear, like she's so talented, and I look up to her so much, and have done throughout my whole sort of project of releasing music. And she has an EP coming out on Valentine's Day called Stay Kinky, and it's incredible. So I hope people go and listen to that.
Well, this will be out after Valentine's Day, so they absolutely can go and listen to that.
Listen to it.
Amazing. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. We're at the end, but this was so fun to chat to you, and I feel like we could do it for like hours.
Yeah,
like I literally...
I've just warmed up.
Like, like we're gonna get so many edits. Just be like, can you put this over the voice over?
I forgot.
Or maybe we could do like a director's cut. You know, when they go over it and you just like speak over yourself, and you're like, this is more info.
Oh my god, I love this. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for listening. We'll speak to you next time.
Yes. Bye guys.
Bye.